You are Black in the Green Room with me, your host, Keith Underwood. And this is your spot for real talk about entertainment with entertainers, creatives, and showbiz professionals. Joining me in the room today is our special guest, a true heavyweight in Black Hollywood, Reggie Hudlin. He is the guy behind House Party. He helped produce the Oscar-winning Django Unchained and even ran BET at a point. Reggie's done it all, films, TV, comics, and now he's stepping into the documentary space with number one on the call sheet, dropping on Apple TV Plus. It's a two-part doc that shines a spotlight on Black leading men and women in Hollywood and is packed with a bunch of legends. Reggie, welcome to the room.
Yes, thank you.
How,
Great to be here.
yes, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm on the road. My son's looking at colleges and spring break, so doing the thing.
All right, good, good. It's really funny because you were raised in East St. Louis, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I used to live right up the hill from you. I wasn't raised there, but I came there later on in Belleville, Illinois.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Right. The neighboring town.
yeah, the neighboring town. So, but from you, Tina Turner didn't live far. Well, the home that she was raised in wasn't far from the home that you were raised in.
Yeah, Tina Turner was two doors down on one side, and Brother Joe May, who was a famous gospel singer, was two doors down on the other side. So there we were, halfway betwixt heaven and hell. Two world class entertainers, and part of a great cultural legacy of our small town.
Yeah. And for you, Reggie, I mean, being around these huge musical, influences or being in the space of these huge musical influences, how much did it play into your creative journey?
Very much. I mean, again, East St. Louis is a small, all black town, financially very poor, culturally very rich, great music, jazz, blues, R&B, soul, gospel, everywhere. The sense of style and fashion and language, it all had a huge impact on me, and that kind of Midwestern sensibility, which is kind of humble, strong willpower, real show me state attitude of like, we hear the hype, but we got to see it to believe it.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, I'm very familiar with the landscape in East St. Louis and knowing all of the things that you just talked about. And then
Mm-hmm.
being a creative and especially from a very young age, how do you keep focus with everything else that's going on around you?
Well, I mean, look, it's one of those things where even though I really love East St. Louis, I love where I'm from. A big part of why I am who I am is where I'm from. At the
Mm,
same time, uh, you know, I knew for me to be my best possible self to fulfill my potential, I had to get out.
mm.
And went to Harvard for college, lived in New York for a while, then finally moved to Los Angeles, which is where my career is based now.
Hmm. And how did those other spaces, I mean, ultimately winding up in Los Angeles, but how did those other spaces allow you to grow and kind of expand your horizons?
Well, they were great. I mean, it's ironic. I mean, again, as we're, looking at colleges for my son, my daughter is a sophomore in college right now. Going to the right place, wherever that might be, and the right place really depends on who you are as a person, where you can get a buffet of educational opportunities, and you can just learn all the things you can learn and learn how to learn.
Mm.
Particularly in this era where who knows what the jobs of the futures are. But if you learn how to learn, that's the most important thing. And you find what your passion is. And when I look at my career, it's really grounded in passion. And as long as I'm passionate about what I'm doing, I tend to find myself, I find my path to success.
Yeah, and it seems like that you've always kind of known what you wanted your trajectory to be, what direction that you
Mhm.
wanted to go in. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's crazy. When I was a kid, I would play with army men and action figures, and my friends were like, "Oh, I want to play too." I'm like, "What? You don't know the story. You don't know who this character is. You don't know who this guy is." So I guess that was a sign of things to come.
Right. And you were already directing and didn't even realize it.
Absolutely.
Dropping, I love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full of soul. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so hard it hit hard like the streets.
So, House Party, it started out as your senior thesis at Harvard, and it ended up becoming a straight up cultural classic. And how much of your own life or the people that you knew made it into this story?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid and I would pitch movie ideas to my older brother, one Christmas he gave me a notebook, and I opened it, and the pages were blank. And he goes, "Stop telling me your ideas and write them down." Be a funny incident with my friends, and I would figure out, and I would just write down that little idea. Whether my middle brother was sneaking into the house and my dad would catch him, or my friends talking about how how they would decide whether a girl was fine or not. So I just knew. So finally I strung together all those bits and pieces of lived experience.
Nice, nice, nice. I've got another bit of shared history for you. I auditioned for John Singleton once and didn't get a job back then, but I also auditioned for Martin Lawrence's role in House Party,
Oh wow!
and I was too tall. Yeah, but we're all
Yeah.
but we're okay now. I mean, you know.
Yes.
So,
Right.
so Reggie, so you were one of nine producers on Django Unchained, working alongside Tarantino. How did your background, especially in film and comics, play into what you brought to the table? And what was that creative process like with someone as big as Quentin Tarantino?
Yeah. Well, it started with a conversation at a party, and we started talking about movies about slavery. And my take was that most of them failed because until there was a movie about the American experience that had the power and impact that Stanley Kubrick's Spartacus did,
Mm,
that they just were I didn't want to see torture porn. I want to see people fighting back, and
mm.
that resonated with him. And a couple of years later, he called me and says, "Hey, I just finished a new script. Why don't you come by? I'm having a party." Give me a copy of the script. And he told a friend of his, who told me, "You planted the seed. This is the tree." I'm like, "What?" And he recalled that early conversation. And then when I read the script, I loved it. It was incredible. So he called and said, "Well, do you have any notes?" I have a few notes. And then I told him my notes. He goes, "Oh, those are good notes." So I said, "Look, man, I'm so excited you're going back to work." He goes, "No, no, 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 no. You're going to be a producer on the movie. I just wanted to make sure you liked it." I said, "Oh, I love it." So 2 weeks later, we are scouting locations and getting to work. And it was an amazing 2 year experience working with an absolute genius. Quentin Tarantino is a brilliant writer, a brilliant director, and works in an environment where it's just all about the creativity.
Mm.
And we had a wonderful working relationship and made a movie that I think will last forever.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. What was it like seeing, especially since you didn't want to see torture porn? What was it like watching when you first saw the first 5 minutes of the movie?
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, for me, it was the experience of making the movie. Working with my friend Jamie Foxx and his expertise on a horse, his expertise with a gun. The first day of shooting where he rode into town, still fresh off of slavery and riding past a noose, waiting, for some people to be hanged, and the power of him in that moment, owning the fact that yes, I am a I am a man who was enslaved until recently, but
Mm.
even in this condition, I am still a man. And for me, the movie, which is about a man who is going to hell to save his wife, I can't think of a more noble subject matter than that.
Yeah. And it can almost cross that story can almost cross any genre. But when you add the element of slavery to it, and especially with, someone getting their revenge, especially a slave getting their revenge and empowering themselves, did you get any pushback about it or any real negative comments about the story?
Well, once the film, I mean, there was a lot of, you know, concern. Oh, what's this movie going to be about, and what's Quentin up to? And there was, so I said, "Well, have you read the script?" They said, "No." I said, "Well, you just have to see the movie." And when everybody saw the movie, they were like, "Oh, wow, that was," suddenly everybody loved it. It was exciting. It was a
Hmm.
huge box office hit on a global basis, and and that's Quentin's gift, his ability to take genre films and mix them with, you know, subject matter we've never seen on screen before, and he does it magnificently. And I can't, this and Inglorious Bastards are two great examples of him doing what only he can do.
Nice. Reggie, what is it like working with nine other producers on a project?
Well, it's funny because when you before you get in the movie business and you go, what are all those people there? What are they all doing? And then when you're making a movie, you go, oh, everyone's got a job and everyone's working really, really hard on it. And that's certainly the case with Django Unchained. It was an incredibly ambitious film. Um, and actually, it's funny compared to some of the other blockbusters being made at the same time. We were a fraction of the cost of some of those other movies. And, it's all, so some people are working, um, you know, everyone's got different assignments where you're working with actors, working with stunt people, working on budgets and all that stuff. I mean, that's the trick to the producer title. It's a very elastic title. Some people go, well, what's that mean? And who are you, who are that? And one of the nicest things ever said to me while we were shooting the film, my wife was visiting. So we were in the grocery store, buying some stuff. And we ran into one of the crew people, and he turned to my wife and goes, "Reggie's the spirit leader of the movie." And I thought,
Mm.
wow, what a nice thing to say.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, what does that mean? What is it? What is a spirit leader of a project, especially specifically this project?
Well, I certainly, academically, I'd spent, a good chunk of my life studying that period of history. So, I mean, that was something that was important to me in terms of making sure that we were telling the story with historical accuracy. And at the same time, the importance of payback and revenge. No one wants to see medicine. People want to
Mm.
have a good time. And certainly that, that's we all agreed on that. And also just it's a tough movie to make, emotionally, physically, and just making sure that everyone is um has what they need or in good spirits and or is processing trauma that we're depicting on screen. All those things kind of fall under the job of, hey, something needs to be done about this. What are you going to do? So that's what a producer's job really is.
Hmm.
Whatever needs to be done, make sure it gets done.
That's right. That's right. Reggie, I'm just so excited to see number one on the call sheet. I was looking, which I haven't seen yet, but it's coming. I was
Mm.
watching the trailer and I was looking at all of the different stars that are going to be featured in this documentary. And I was just amazed. I was like, this man was able to collect all of these people for this project that I mean, who would have thought? And especially focusing on Black male and Black female performers. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. What was the brain trust behind this, and what was the motivation to doing this project?
Well, Datari Turner was one of the producers, came up with the idea. He pitched it to his partner, Jamie Foxx, who loved it. Jamie, in turn, pitched it to Kevin Hart, who loved it. And they all said, you know who we should call? And they called me. So the minute I heard it, I loved it. It's a great idea on its own, but because I made a movie a few years ago about the life of Sidney Poitier, who
Mm,
was the first Black movie star, who was
hmm.
the man who everyone in these films stands on the shoulders of. So
Right.
I thought, wow, yes, I kind of want to do a bookend to Sydney, and this would be the perfect way to do it, to feature every star today. So it was kind of a no-brainer for everyone involved.
Yeah. And I mean, with all of those powerhouses, with yourself, Kevin Hart, Datari Turner, I'm sure that it seems to us looking in on the outside that it was hard getting all of these celebrities, but I'm sure that, that cash was, right there to pull in those people.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, what was great was that people really were intrigued and excited about the idea.
Mm,
The challenge was their availability
yes.
because they are, in fact, never on the call sheet. These are some of the most in demand actors in Hollywood. So the scheduling part was a challenge.
Yes. How did you guys overcome that challenge?
We just kept shooting. It just took us years. You just have to be patient. It's like fishing, So, but, but when someone says, yes, I want to do it, then you know what? You wait.
Hmm.
Like whenever Denzel's ready is when we're ready. So,
Yeah, I'm just still just amazed by the whole process. What was one of the most interesting stories that you heard
uh,
during filming?
well, you know, it, it, look, we had so many stories. The movie could have been twice as long. And so some of our favorite, I mean, the movie is made up of our favorite stories, and
Hmm.
everyone had something amazing to contribute. And that's what I love when I talk to audience. They go, oh my God, Lawrence Fishburne, you had me crying in the first 5 minutes because of his story. Or, oh, I was so inspired by what Will Smith said, or by, what The Rock said, or, but what Kevin Hart said. I think they all have stories that either make you go, oh, I'm not alone, or that's how to do it. I mean, what
Hmm.
these guys are really providing are blueprints for living, and blueprint and an insight into a winner's mentality. Because as different as they all are, that's the one thing they all share is the mentality of a winner.
Yeah. What did you learn that you didn't know about Black folks in general from the project?
I don't know if I learned anything new about Black folks. I think I learned a lot of. I think the biggest message is there is not one road to success.
Mm,
And when you listen to all these stories, you just go, "Wow, well, how Ice Cube did it is very different than how Will Smith did it, who's very different than how Morgan Freeman did it." But they all ended up in the same place, which is in that number one spot. So the fact is, you have to say, well, what's the right path for me? And I
hmm.
think that's the big universal message that transcends race, transcends entertainment. It's just how to win.
Yeah. Did you learn anything overall from talking to so many, different stars? How do they keep focused on their own journeys and not kind of paying attention to what their peers are doing?
Well, they all pay attention to each other. I mean, and they're all fans of each other. And when you hear how much Will Smith admires Eddie Murphy, when you hear Eddie Murphy talking about how much he admires The Rock, I mean, you just go, wow, they all, they, and, it makes sense because look at their careers. there are probably times early in their careers when they may have been all up for the same spots. I know a lot of the ladies say that. So,
Hmm.
so yes, there's a camaraderie that comes from that. At the same time, they're successful because they understand who they are. They're incredibly comfortable in their own skin,
Hmm.
and their success is grounded in that.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the production and the aesthetic. What were you going for in the doc?
Well, I wanted to. We were making a movie that wasn't about them plugging a project, right? This is just a conversation.
Hmm.
So whether it was at their home or whether it was at their office, we wanted it to be about them and not a character they were playing. And you get to see other sides. For example, when we talk to Kevin Hart, you really see him in his moguldom.
Mm.
Because yes, he's a successful performer, but he's got a very successful business, and you get to see that side of him as well. So we just want to show the whole person.
Yeah. And I like that because sometimes, especially, viewers or an audience, they can only see one side of an entertainment, especially with someone like Kevin Hart. He's funny and he works all the time, but not understanding that there's an enterprise behind that performer.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. What were some of the other things that you personally learned from the documentary that you didn't know maybe about people that were your friends?
Well, I didn't always know everyone's backstory. What's their origin, and that was really dynamic. I mean, when Denzel goes, I'm not really a movie guy. I'm not, I watch Superfly. That looks good to me, but he really loves the theater.
Mm.
And so I think that was a very important distinction, given its extraordinary success in the medium of film.
Yes.
Dropping, I love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full of soul. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so hard it hit hard like the streets.
So you split the doc up into two parts. One part is focused on, the males, and the other part is focused on the females. Why did you feel that it was important to make this move?
Well, once we started discussing the project, it seemed obvious that was the right thing to do. First of all, there's just so many cast members that we couldn't fit them all into one film.
Mm.
And secondly, uh, they were some commonalities about the experience of the women, as diverse as they all are, that it felt like, what, to really do this justice, let's just give them their own space to tell their own stories, not be compared to men, but just be themselves. And,
Hmm.
having a wonderful female director like Shala Lynch tell that story.
Yes. Anybody else that you want to shout out from the production team?
Oh gosh, I mean, the entire team was extraordinary. There's my producing partner Byron Phillips, who we've done Black Godfather with. We did Fat Tuesday with. So many different projects and so many different mediums. The Image Awards, um, but the entire team was extraordinary. Diana Williams, Edison. I mean, I could just go on and on. It's these things are really army projects.
Hmm. What do you hope that audiences will not only take away from this project, but also enrich them, especially folks that are interested in the business?
Well, I look, if you everyone who sees the film says the same thing. I'm going straight home and going back to work. They
Mm.
all had that same reaction, like, man, this movie is a kick in the pants, and whatever it is that I've been delaying on, I'm ready to get focused. So it's a cure.
Hmm. And what I love about that too, Reggie, is that sometimes, especially when you're struggling in the industry and you see folks who have already, arrived, or as we see them as arriving, there can
Mhm.
be some envy, but they instead of having that envious feeling or that crabs in the barrel, they found inspiration from these stories to make sure that they're on their game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's, I think, one of the things why folks were so willing to participate is because they um, they wanted to share. They wanted to give advice, and this was more efficient than kind of going around from school to school or people stopping on the street. Like, hey, watch this movie. If you watch this, you'll. This is the blueprint for success.
Hmm. Reggie, what do you think, especially after this experience, and then saying that these folks were more than willing to share their expertise and their experiences? What do you think about, some folks? I've heard some producers who have said, get your own, work hard, don't look for a hand up. What do you say to those? What do you say to those folks?
Well, I mean, look, you do have to get your own. I mean, that's just the reality of it. There's no substitute for doing the work,
Hmm.
right? But at the same time, when it comes to advice, when it comes to guidance, you can't take it with you. So it's really important for me to share.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's so evident, in your work and who the people that you decide to work with and bring into your camps as well. So, I salute you for that, for giving back. Let's see here. You ran BET during a pretty pivotal time.
Mm-hmm.
How did that experience shift the way you think about the kind of stories that you want to tell? Or were those stories already ingrained in you and this was just an outlet to be able to do it?
Well, it was a great experience for me because I believe in working on every side of the desk. And I've been a writer and producer and director. I've worked in film and television and live events and all that, but I've not been an executive. So being an executive is a unique experience. And I learned so much that made me a better writer, producer, director, and all those other jobs.
Share
So,
share a little bit of that, Reggie. What did you learn?
well, the thing is, I guess the biggest lesson you learn is there's this really terrible attitude that a lot of creative people say, "Oh man, those guys, those are the suits. They're the man, and they're trying to hold me down and hold me back." And it's like, no, they're actually looking to you to solve a problem. Can you make something good? And you may disagree on suggestions about the solutions to a problem, but they're trying to give you money because they believe in you. And I think keeping that nugget in your head is very important in as you work through challenges together.
Yeah. And so now that you're back full time on the production side, how does that influence how you look at the big wigs and the C-suite?
Yeah, I mean the fact is, I understand their problems, preemptively. So I try to address those up front, so they know that I understand what they're thinking and feeling. Whether we agree or not doesn't matter. People want to be heard, and they want to
Hmm.
know, oh, you're listening to me, you understand what I'm looking for. We can disagree on how to get there or not disagree at all, but the point is, when you don't feel like you're talking to a brick wall, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. We also have something else in common besides everything else I've mentioned so far. You're a nerd and I'm a nerd. We both love comic books. I mean, it is from all of this, from all of the business that I have to do every day, it is my escape. How did you discover the medium and what does it mean to you now?
Mm-hmm. I grew up with him. My eldest brother Warrington would come home from the weekly trip to the store, and he would lay out the books, and he'd go, "Don't touch them until you wash your hands."
You had to
Very
wash your
careful.
hands first.
Yes,
Love it.
and I love them. I always loved them. I thought it was a huge part of my education. All that reading, all that language, all those big ideas, and I stopped for a while and then I got back into them, and they're just a great place to both relax me and inspire me.
Hmm. And being in that space, Black Panther in the comic books and Marvel Comics, you
Mhm.
were a big influence in the shift in how people saw Black Panther, and I would even dare say a big inspiration for Ryan Coogler's version of Black Panther. What
Mhm.
is that? Why was that important to you? Why was it important for you to take that particular IP and do what
Mhm.
you did with it?
Yeah, well, when I had a meeting with Marvel and they said, "Hey, well, which comic book do you want to write?" I said Black Panther, and they said, "Sure, we can do 6 issues." And there was a certain kind of storytelling that I very much wanted to say that was really focused on establishing what that world was for someone who may have never read a comic book in their life, let alone a Black Panther comic. I want to establish that he was um, it was a nation that had never been conquered, that it was scientifically advanced. Um, and I also created Shuri, his sister.
Absolutely.
And and I also knew that a movie based on that character would be a giant global success.
Yeah.
And
How did you know that?
because I know things.
Come on now, Reggie. Love it.
And 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 that success would change black cinema, which is
Mm,
what all those things are exactly what happened.
yeah.
That was important. I mean, I come from an era where uh, each black success in movies led to another.
Hmm.
You know, the successful "I'm gonna get you, sucker" got House Party made. House Party success got New Jack City made. So I knew that that kind of success would be a game changer, and a watershed moment.
Yeah. Do you have an original IP in mind that you would like to see come to fruition in comics and then ultimately film, possibly television?
Of course,
Can you share a little bit?
no.
Dropping, I love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full of soul. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so raw they hit hard like the streets.
So you've been about collaboration your entire career, as we mentioned earlier. What do you look for in the people that you work with, and how do you know when that team is clicking, when it's the right group of people?
Well, I want people who have different opinions and perspectives than my own. At the same time, we're rowing the boat in the same direction. You know, so
Hmm.
that's the combination that's the most important to me.
Hmm. And then how does your leadership style play into the people that you work with, your team?
Well, you know, look, I try to get the best people so I don't have to babysit them
Mm.
and tell them every little thing to do. And I will listen to any suggestion as long as you don't mind me saying no.
I've had that experience. So, and Reggie, on the broader scale of when you're working, with this team and picking them, how do you know that a person is the right fit for that particular job? Or have you ever had to say, I really like you. I think you're very competent, but I think you would be much better in this space.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to say that. And some people are just, they're talented, but not for that particular job. And, you know, it may be hurtful to that person, but ultimately, I think people being on the path that best suits them ultimately is a win for everybody.
Absolutely. So number one on the call sheet, it drops. Well, it's already dropped. It's on Apple Plus, right? Right
Yep.
now. And I know that you're excited to get even more feedback and see what comes next. Um, are you expecting there to possibly be another volume of this as well?
Oh, I don't know. I'm very happy with this one, but we kind of talked to everybody.
Hmm.
I think if you're going to do another one, you probably have to wait another 30 years.
What about one that's on the other end of rising stars in the business, like like your Aaron Pierre's and folks like that?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously it's very exciting to see all these new stars. So, look, and like I said, I mean, we'll just see. Right now, I'm just happy that this baby's born. I can't think about getting pregnant again.
I see why you're the cinematic genius. Reggie, what project are you most looking forward to next? Outside of the documentary space.
I mean, honestly, there's always two or three scripts I'm developing at the same time. There's new comic books I'm developing. I do my show, Black Movie Soundtrack at the Hollywood Bowl. That's coming up September 10th. So I always keep a full plate.
Yeah. And I want you to be really real for our audience, especially for aspirants, and I don't expect that you would do any less. What is the reality of being, a superstar producer, director, and what people think that means that they're always working, that they're always busy. What's the realness about that?
Well, then you need to watch the movie because, what's great about this story, this movie is that people are very honest about the ups and downs of the business. If you want consistent work, probably need to maybe consider insurance or accounting. But this is a very volatile industry.
Hmm.
And if you don't have the stomach for that, which is completely reasonable, by the way, it's not unreasonable. If you're a person with a family, you got to make sure people eat every week. There's a roof over their head.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's not for everybody.
Yes.
Dropping, I love color hoodies, fly like soundtracks, 8 tracks, taking it back to LPs, that's a flashback. I lay down fashion on these streets like Beverly Hill asphalt. Got everyone driving clean, they can't help but feel the vibes. It's a full assault. I'm from the East Coast where the rap game is gritty, spitting lyrics so raw they hit hard like the streets.
Reggie, welcome Black.
Good to be black.
Yes. Where can everyone find, number one on the call sheet? Where can they watch it?
Apple TV Plus, and if you go to watch it, you'll get a bonus of seeing Sydney, another documentary I made about the great, legendary Sidney Poitier.
Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit about Sydney.
Well, I had finished my first documentary, The Black Godfather, which is about the life of Clarence Avant. And after I finished it, I said, "Oh my God!" On my first documentary, and I told one of the greatest stories, one of the most famous people that no one knows.
Hmm.
And I said,
That's very true.
I just didn't know whose story I could tell that would could follow doing Clarence. And then I get a call from someone, oh, well, we're going to do a movie about the life of Sidney Poitier. And I suddenly felt very protective because Clarence is, I mean, I'm sorry, because Sidney is so important to me.
Hmm.
I didn't want to make sure someone uh, committed malpractice and didn't tell his full story. So I
Mhm.
was very proud and honored to tell the Sidney Poitier story.
Yeah. What do you love about the documentary space?
Well, there's certain stories that should be movies or TV shows. Certain things should be scripted, and certain things you have the benefit of it being all true. And when you have a story like Sidney Poitier, who's larger than life, you have to do it as a documentary because people, it feels fake. It's so amazing. And with this story, the only way you could tell it is to talk to these amazing men and women and to hear their actual true stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Reggie, where can everyone get more sage wisdom from you or just see what you're doing every day on social media?
I'm on everything. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Blue Sky, the new very popular website. So, you can follow me on all those things. Please don't pitch me any movie ideas. I can't, for legal reason, take any of them.
Absolutely.
I'm and I have a website, HudlinEntertainment.com, so you can go there as well. So any number of those places is where I'm at.
All right. Reggie Hudlin, thank you so much for your time today. I mean, it's been so insightful and inspiring and informative. And I just hope that just more great work, and I'm sure that more great work will come from you outside of number one on the call sheet. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Be sure to follow me, Keith Underwood, at Mr. Keith L. Underwood on IG. You can also follow me on FB at Keith L. Underwood. And you gotta follow Black in the Green Room at Black in the Green Room across all platforms. Until next time, this has been Black in the Green Room.